Hello, fight fans and nerds alike. So, what kind of going to be going over is some fun implemented things for this modern arts, or I have to call it the martial arts supplemental book that I am kind of pending with creation of things. So I think everyone's going to enjoy this, at least that's the hope. So, we're diving into the supplement that's going to kind of expand the martial arts rules under the SWADE system in Savage Worlds. So whether you're a seasoned veteran or a new player, these rules will add depth and complexity to your hand-to-hand combat encounters. These alternative rules will eventually have things like new professional edges involved, hindrances, modifiers, and things that will affect the game for it. So, first thing I kind of want to mention is kind of where this first part of the series is going to. We're going to be mentioning grappling. So in SWADE, grappling can be sometimes limited, especially for someone who's familiar with how grappling works. The good news is I could say, unlike most systems, SWADE does a pretty simplistic way of handling grappling. D&E's other ones do add a little more complexity to it, so I will say right there, I'm thankful for that we have decently that. Now, the good news is these new rules will aim to change them to some that might be adding some dread to the idea of it, but it will add a little bit of realism and strategy behind it, so I can think you guys will like that. So, it can be included in things like chokes, submission holds, positioning, all the things, everything that's kind of play a factor to it. Now, I will eventually be giving you more in-depth things about ideas behind certain things that we'll be adding to, but for now, I kind of want to mention some examples I want to pull out here. So, this in particular, we're getting into, what kind of going into initially the grapple. So, first thing first, you go through the typical ways of it. The attacker makes an athletics, strength, or, dexterity rule versus their opponent's athletics, strength, or agility. Their choice, obviously. Now, if the attacker is one size larger, size modifiers are a thing. Certain edges will come into effect, like things like having martial arts will help you in these situations. Brawler can potentially help you in strength situations where there will be other edges that will set to it. Not having access to an edge that makes sense for defense against grappling, you will have negatives to you. You can have a D12 in fighting. This almost feels like it's the specialization rules that you've seen in the setting will before in Deluxe and in SWADE. You can kind of treat it like that, but there'll be this basic thing of this way though. If you don't have the right setup, these are gonna mess you up. But, things like even hindrances like your side, like being small, can end up making it a problem. Anyway, enough battling on that. So they succeed on grappling thing and erase you get a more advantageous position, so you move directly to up as result. Basically, if you succeed in the initially grapple, you can choose a basic position, so flip like full guard, half guard. If you're raised, you will be regaining a more advantageous thing, so you move directly to mount or back control. Filter that gives you more of an offense thing. So failure, obviously the defender avoids the grapple and the attacker actions ends. So, we're kind of going here, though. Now, maintaining is where we kind of started getting a little different here. And so, on their turn, the grappler can attempt to maintain the patrol using their opposed athletics or strengthful, to set up the bills. So, modifiers from positions will apply for this, though. So, transition positions will be a very fun thing right here. So, the grappler can attempt to transition to a more advantageous position using their opposed athletic rolls. So, success means the grappler does move into a more desired position and gain the associated bonuses. So, for example, you're say moving from full guard to mount, you give the attacker +2 to fighting rolls and damage from strikes, so that's pretty neat as it is. So, applying the technique, that's where it kind of gets a little interesting to get. So, characters can attempt this techniques like trunk locks, throws, or chokes requiring an opposed roll. So, each technique will have specific effects and conditions, i.e. applying a chokehold might require a raise to be effective, for example, especially if you start getting some interesting ones right there. So, we'll give you a little bit of example real quick. So, we'll say, honor his name, Alex, he attempts to grapple their opponent. Alex rolls athletic trick for +2 bonus from the martial arts edge. We're just using this example. Their opponent rolls, we'll just say, Henry, rolls a flex, choose this. So, Alex gets a strength D8 plus D6 for wild card, +2 for martial arts edge. The opponent's D6 strength plus D6, which is Henry in this case. Alex succeeds and moves into full guard. So maintain the grapple. So on Alex's next turn, he attempts to maintain a grapple. Alex rolls a flag strength with a +2 bonus from the full guard position. Now, I understand all this in third does sound complex. Again, this is offering alternative stuff you guys to try out if it works. And when it's have it's all written down and placed somewhere in a PDF form, you guys will see exactly what I mean. It might make more sense then. We will be using illustrations, so anything you see on the screen during this thing, you will hopefully get a better idea of how it would work things out. So Henry will make a pose roll to resist. So basically then Alex wants to edges to a mount position. Alex rolls strength with a +2 bonus from, we're going to say an future edge like Grappler. The opponent rolls athletics strength to resist. Alex succeeds in transition to a mount on Henry, gaining the +2 bonus to fighting rolls and damage. Now, applying a submission, we're going to get more into this section later, but this is kind of but basically, your pliers are, we'll say armbar, for example. Mount to roll athletics with a +2 bonus from the mount, and the opponent rolls strength to resist, we'll say over athletics, whichever way you work it out. Size modifiers will become a factor on your edges, and this can do at positions. So, for example, mount, like we just mentioned, would be +2 to fighting rolls, +2 to damage. These rules will decide no intent tactical approaches to grapples in SWADE. I will wondering out, it will be a little mind-boggling, it will take some getting used to, and the fast, furious fun they receive from Savage Worlds might not fit this, but this is our alternative thing for a reason. Gives a little bit more crunch to an ideas, gives a little bit more tactical use for it. So, try to look at it in that sense when kind of discussing how this would work. So obviously it does work an idea for there, and you kind of get that beginning ideas that there are grappling positions and stuff. The grappling release will start the typical way you will go through under in SWADE. Now, I do want to mention some positions that are interesting, like full guard, for example. This one's very fun. So the character on the bottom will typically, in a grappling exchange, will wrap their leg around their opponent's waist, controlling their posture and limiting their ability to strike effectively. So their attacker on top, this is where one will kind of run into a scenario where a grapple would affect both sides in very interesting ways. So the fighter on top typically has more of an advantage, but in this case, not so much. Their aggressor on top will have a -2 through fighting rolls and to damage rolls due to the limited movements and leverage. Whereas the person on the bottom, they are +2 to oppose rolls to maintain or disadvantage to transition to the position. They can use the legs more often than not to do things like apply submissions. So think triangle chokes, arm bars, interesting choke holds like think Darce maybe, if you could pull it off. I'm trying to remember all these submissions, there's a lot of them. Or just sweep. Now, however, you still run the risk of being at a disadvantage, being on the ground overall. It helps you in a one-on-one that other people come at you for, say, purposes of gang up and stuff like that. You're going to be screwed. And being on top can be horrible. And if you have the right edges, I'll be honest, if you're someone on the top and you're dealing with a full guard, you could potentially go into a heel hook, which that's a little bit more complex. Don't mind me. I'm just using an example. Now, scrambling between two of the people position-wise, the person on top can go through something else. So we'll kind of transition into this next part. It's very fun. So we call this kind of half guard. So the character on the bottom has their opponents, have one of their opponent's legs trapped between their own, and this allows for more offensive and defensive kind of opportunities to kind of go into things. So top position kind of goes for, there's no modifiers for the fighting rules. It's a -1 to oppose grappling rules due to position out of half guard. Now the defender on the bottom kind of going through this, you get a +1 to grappling rules transition to move to more advantageous positions such as full guard or to sweep ball. So as you already know, from a half guard position, it kind of halves the effectiveness, and unlike before, there's not really too much that's dealing with damage so much because you're really not affecting them so badly now that they can't strike you with beat you up with ground and pound. That's a whole different discussion, different thing. So, now let's go transition to another one. I'm kind of mentioning some of the most common position right now. So this one is kind of more of a north-south position. So the attacker is positioned above the opponent with the heads facing opposite directions and allowing for Gusong control and for a submission attempt. I will premise this. I know this looks kind of a low bet. Let's just say Pride Month looking.
Oh my!
Men, the man who's fighting, or men and women in a really awkward, let's just say, Kama Sutra like position. We're trying to keep it PG-13 year on YouTube, so don't mind me when I'm mentioning this. So the attacker on top position is a +1 to grappling rolls to maintain control and to apply submissions. The +1 to damage from strikes due to pursuit position. So you get a superior positioning from just being on the top. Now on the bottom, you get a -2 to escape or reverse it, because at this point, I'll be honest, unless you're facing a dude, your face is in their crotch, and you're willing to use teeth, If an MMA competition is a street fight or just blood for death, well, anything goes. Well, let's just say for the most part, being in north-south position, you are screwed. Now, as this all goes around and flips around, we also have fun things like, say, side control. This can end up, they can do a rotation from north-south, because there's not any options for north and south, really, guys. So, the attacker basically is perpendicular to their opponent. They control their upper body and limiting their ability to move, so they kind of turn sideways, kind of, once on the north-south kind of vertical on there. So the attacker on top position get a +1 to grappling to maintain control, which is to a more advantageous position, such as mounting with north-south. And you get a +1 from strikes. And a defender, if you're on the bottom of this, you're dealing with a -1 to grappling rules to escape or reverse it. We will go over reversals at some point. But at the very least, you can argue that if you're on the bottom more times than not on your back, you're going to be screwed unless you have the right edges, build, strategy, and everything else. It does make things complicated, and you're always trying to use common maneuvers that you would see underneath SWADE. So don't ever think we can't do that. But if it's purely a competition, we're trying to keep these extended rules for the most part. But anyway, and don't forget people, we still deal with things like distracted and vulnerability. So those things can still happen underneath there. So back can always happen, but between two people, usually it's not going to be so much of a factor unless you've done something correct or trickies, like, I don't know, taunt or something that can maybe mess with them with a test. So that's more complex rules. We're not getting into that right now. I'm just kind of like mentioning it. So the last position I kind of want to get into, we kind of mentioned mount, but another one that's very fun is capturing the back. So kind of like a back mount thing. So the character controls the opponent from behind with the hooks, legs wrapped typically around the opponent's waist and X to the neck for chokeholds. The attacker on the back position, this is one of the best visuals you can get in someone in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu or wrestling. So you will get a +2 to grappling rules while maintaining control or to apply submissions, i.e. typically the renegade choke +2 to damage from strikes due to the opponent's vulnerability. You're kind of screwed when you're the defender. You got a -2 to grappling rules due to escape or resist position vulnerable to chokes or submissions. So honestly, in this position, it's still kind of in the testing ground. I would honestly say if you're in a position, you could arguably make an argument that you could be facing a vulnerable status effect for this. I figured if you're in a mount or a back mount, you are in the worst position you can be in a battle against someone. And honestly, unless you know what you're really doing, you're not escaping and it's going to make life a living hell for you. But for the moment, ground strikes are typically still the same. Positions do matter. Things that brawler can affect it. Racial things that, like I said, these are all different little things you can go in there. We're not going to discuss the difference between hammer, fist, and elbows. Now that we might get a little too complex there, people. Just use your trappings. Describe punch to punch and knees a knee. Unless you have an edge of, like maybe the kickboxers up in there where your knees do more damage. Or Muay Thai, I should say. Or your elbows do more damage for certain punches. Any of those, sure, makes sense. You gotta be semi-realistic with it and kind of portray physics a little bit. This is a little bit more of a realism to it, but hey, as of right now, this is kind of what I'm offering for you guys. This is just the first part of it. We're going through grappling right now because I feel like that's the most paramount version of things you will see for this. But you guys let me know in the comments what you think.